Many would say that the future lies with two large segments of the population, which for shorthand purposes are generally described in the press as the mullahs and the bazaar. There is some evidence that there's a fair amount of sophisticated theological thinking going on in Iran that seeks a disengagement from politics or a new kind of conversation between politics and religion in Iran. And also, we just don't know, or I haven't seen anything about what's going on in the bazaar. Can you tell us about these two factions?
I think it's a very good question, and it's a question I've asked Iranian experts myself. Let me begin with the Bazaaris, because I think that's easier. I think the regime has not promoted the Bazaaris as the third pillar to the stool that holds it up. There are really two pillars to the stool: the mullahcracy, if we want to call it that, the mullah-based leadership, which is not all entirely in agreement, as we have seen, and what I would call the gun carriers, the military, security, intelligence, police people, who seem at the moment to be united, although there are signs from time to time that the Revolutionary Guard, which is close to the top of that pyramid, is in itself having difficulties. There are reports, you'll see them this morning in the Times again, that there are cash flows moving out of Iran, reportedly from Revolutionary Guard accounts. I have no idea whether this is true or not. It's an interesting report, and it would show more uncertainty, perhaps, than the question really deserves. I just don't know. I spent a certain amount of my time in the last 4 or 5 years with others, meeting with Iranians, some official and some non-official. One of the approaches was always to compare notes on each side at the beginning of these meetings about what was going on in each country. The Iranians all began roughly on the same note, but after each made their presentation, they ended up in totally different places. I don't think this was a conspiracy to deceive. Although some have said the Iranians are marvelous negotiators, watch out, one of the tactics is a conspiracy to deceive. I don't really think so. I think, in fact, there were grave uncertainties because, in fact, there are serious uncertainties in Iran about who is moving where and at what particular time with what degree of capacity. And to some extent, these are unrolling events, not foreordained in any particular way. And they recognize different power centers operating in different ways over a different period of time. I think one thing that probably is true is that Khamenei has perhaps moved in the present period of weakness into a stronger position himself because he feels the uncertainties and has put enough people around and enough supporters around to try to bolster that. But I don't think that includes the Bazaaris. I think the Bazaaris were very important in the regime change that took place in '78 because they had been neglected and in some ways pushed down under the Shah regime. But I don't think that they necessarily occupy the same place today. They too struggle to stay alive in Iran and to continue to operate in their area of activities rather than necessarily have been blessed with favored positions.